The German Shepherd's jaws were inches from the child's face when every man in that yard felt his heart stop beating. "Get back!" someone screamed, but the little girl didn't move. She just knelt there in the dust, staring into the eyes of the most dangerous police dog anyone had ever seen. Titan's teeth were bared, his body coiled like a loaded weapon, and for 3 seconds that felt like 3 lifetimes. Nobody breathed. Then the girl whispered something, and what happened next made grown men question everything they thought they knew about broken souls. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss our stories. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. It means the world to me to see how far these stories travel. Now let's begin. The morning Titan arrived at Riverside K9 Recovery Center. Dr. Catherine Hayes stood in her office and asked herself the same question she'd been asking for 20 years. How much damage can one soul endure before it's too late? The transport van sat idling in the parking lot, and through her window she could see the 2 officers who'd driven him refusing to open the rear doors. They just stood there, arms crossed, faces hard. "Ma'am, you need to reconsider this," the older officer called out when Catherine walked over. His name badge read, Mitchell. "This dog put 3 of our handlers in the hospital. 1 needed reconstructive surgery on his hand." "I've read the file, Officer Mitchell." "Then you know he's not like the others you've taken in. This isn't some abused puppy that needs love and patience. This is an 85-pound trained weapon that's forgotten which side he's supposed to be on." Catherine had heard it all before. 20 years running a recovery center for traumatized working dogs meant she'd seen every type of damage humans could inflict and every type of healing animals could achieve. But she'd also learned to read the faces of men who brought these dogs in, and Mitchell's face told her something his words didn't. "You were his handler," she said quietly. Mitchell's jaw tightened. "For 3 years, best partner I ever had." "What happened?" "What happened is that warehouse fire 8 months ago. We went in for a suspect. Building was supposed to be clear. It wasn't." He paused, struggling. "There was a meth lab in the back. Whole thing went up like the 4th of July. My leg got pinned under debris. Titan pulled me out, but the explosion... Something broke in him that night. He hasn't been right since." The younger officer, whose badge read Torres, spoke up. "He saved Mitchell's life and lost himself doing it. Now the department wants him put down. Says he's a liability." "Not if I can help it," Catherine said. "Open the doors." "Ma'am!" "Officer Mitchell, I've been doing this since before you graduated the academy. Open the doors." Mitchell exchanged a look with Torres, then slowly pulled the van doors open. The growl that emerged was something primal. Not the warning bark of a protective dog, but the sound of pure, unfiltered terror wrapped in rage. Titan exploded from the transport crate like a hurricane given form. He hit the chain-link enclosure they'd prepared with such force that the fence post shuddered. Every person in the yard took an instinctive step back. Catherine had worked with aggressive dogs before. Dogs that had been beaten, starved, fought in rings. But what she saw in Titan's eyes was different. This wasn't aggression. This was a soul trying to claw its way out of a nightmare it couldn't wake from. "Jesus," Torres whispered. "He's gotten worse." Jake Morrison. Catherine's head trainer approached from the main building. He was 63, built like an old boxer, and had a scar across his left cheek from a dog that had attacked him in '95. He'd rehabilitated that dog, kept him as his own until the dog died of old age 13 years later. If anyone could reach Titan, it would be Jake. But even Jake stopped a good 15 feet from the fence. "That's the police dog?" he asked, watching Titan slam against the reinforced barrier again and again. "That's the one they said was a hero." "Was," Mitchell said bitterly. "Now he's just broken." "Don't say that where I can hear you," Catherine snapped. "Every animal can be reached. You just have to find the right frequency." "With respect, Dr. Hayes, some frequencies are too damaged to transmit anymore." Catherine turned to face Mitchell fully. "If you believe that you wouldn't have driven him all the way here instead of letting the department follow through with their recommendation, you still see your partner in there. You just don't know how to bring him back." Mitchell's face crumbled for just a second before he rebuilt it. "You've got 60 days. That's what we agreed with the department. 60 days to show improvement, or they're sending someone to finish what should have been done months ago. Then I'd better get to work. The officers left. Jake stayed arms crossed, studying Titan, with the careful attention of a man who'd spent his entire adult life reading animal behavior. "What do you think?" Catherine asked. "I think we're going to need a different approach with this one." "Such as?" "Don't know yet, but look at his eyes, Catherine. Really look." She did. Through the chaos of movement, the bared teeth, the violent lunging, she found Titan's eyes. And what she saw there made her chest tight. He wasn't trying to escape. He wasn't trying to attack. He was trying to disappear into anything that would make the world stop feeling like an explosion waiting to happen. "He's not here," she said quietly. "He's still in that fire." "Exactly. And until we can bring him back from there, nothing we do is going to matter." That's when Sofia Rodriguez's car pulled into the parking lot. Sofia was new hired just 3 weeks ago as a veterinary assistant. She was 34, a widow, with a 7-year-old daughter, and she'd impressed Catherine immediately with her gentle competence and unshakable calm. But Catherine had specifically told her to come in through the east entrance today, not the main lot, because a little girl climbed out of the passenger seat. "Oh no," Catherine muttered, already moving. "Sofia, I told you." "I know, I'm sorry, Dr. Hayes. Her school called she's sick and they needed someone to pick her up. I was going to take her home, but I have that surgery at 11 and..." It's fine, just get her into the office." Before Emma Rodriguez had already stopped walking. She stood maybe 30 feet from Titan's enclosure, a tiny figure in a purple jacket and light-up sneakers, and she was staring. And Titan had stopped moving. The sudden silence in the yard was so complete that Catherine could hear the wind moving through the trees on the far side of the property. Jake's hand went to the tranquilizer gun on his hip, but he didn't draw it. He was too busy watching something none of them could quite process. Titan stood utterly still, sides heaving from exertion muscles coiled but motionless. His eyes were locked on Emma, not with aggression, not with prey drive, with something else entirely. Recognition. Not recognition of this specific child, but recognition of something she carried. Something in her stillness, her lack of fear. Her quiet attention spoke a language Titan understood, but hadn't heard since the night the world exploded around him. "Sofia," Catherine said very quietly, "pick up your daughter and walk slowly toward the office. Don't run, don't make sudden movements." But Emma didn't wait for her mother. She took one small step forward. "Emma, no!" Sofia's voice cracked with panic. Emma took another step, then another. She walked with the steady, unhurried pace of a child who'd spent her whole life around animals, reading their fear, and responding with the kind of calm that only comes from understanding that fear yourself. "Someone grab her," Jake hissed, but nobody moved. Because something impossible was happening, and every person in that yard knew that the wrong intervention could shatter whatever fragile thing was building in the air between the traumatized dog and the quiet child. Emma stopped 5 feet from the fence, close enough that if Titan lunged, he could get his muzzle through the chain link, close enough that one snap of those jaws could change everything. Sofia was crying now, frozen in place, one hand over her mouth. Emma knelt. She didn't speak. She didn't reach out. She simply knelt in the dust and looked at Titan with eyes that held something most adults had lost years ago. The ability to see pain without trying to fix it, to witness fear, without adding to it, to be present with suffering, without needing it to change. Titan's growl died in his throat. His ears, which had been pinned flat against his skull, twitched forward. His weight shifted from his back legs, the attack stance, to something more neutral. "What is she doing?" Torres whispered. The officer had come back from the parking lot and now stood beside Mitchell, both men transfixed. "I don't know," Catherine breathed. But nobody moved. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2. Then Titan lowered himself to the ground. Not relaxed. Not calm. But no longer ready to detonate at the first sign of threat. He kept his eyes on Emma, and Emma kept her eyes on him. And in that gaze, something ancient and wordless passed between them. Sofia couldn't hold back anymore. She rushed forward, scooped Emma up, and practically ran toward the office building. "I'm so sorry, Dr. Hayes. I'm so sorry she doesn't normally. Emma doesn't usually. She's never..." "Take her inside," Catherine said, but her voice was distant. She was still watching Titan, who was now watching the empty space where Emma had knelt. his head tilted in confusion, or perhaps loss. When the door closed behind Sophia and Emma Titan released a sound Catherine had never heard from a dog before. Not a bark, not a whine, not a howl. Something that landed somewhere between all three and sounded exactly like the noise a soul makes when it realizes it's just glimpsed something it desperately needed and watched it disappear. "What the hell was that?" Jake asked. Catherine shook her head slowly. "I have no idea, but I think we just found our frequency." Inside the office, Sophia was shaking so hard she had to sit down. Emma stood calmly beside her mother's chair, seemingly unbothered by what had just happened. Catherine came in, closed the door gently, and knelt in front of Emma. "Sweetheart, that was very brave, but it was also very dangerous. That dog is hurt and hurt-scared animals can do unexpected things." Emma looked at her with eyes too old for 7. "He wasn't going to hurt me." "How did you know that?" "Because he was scared of me hurting him." The words hung in the air like a bell that had just been rung. Sophia stared at her daughter. Catherine felt something shift in her chest. "Emma," Catherine said carefully, "has something like this happened before? Have you been around scared dogs before?" Emma shook her head. "Not dogs, me." "What do you mean, honey?" "After Daddy died, people tried to help, but they moved too fast and talked too loud and wanted me to feel better too quick. It made me scared. So I stopped talking for a while." She said it so matter-of-factly, as if she were describing the weather. "The dog stopped barking. That means he's too scared to talk. I remember that feeling." Sophia's hand went to her mouth again. "Emma, baby, you never told me. You were sad too, Mama. I didn't want to make it worse." Catherine stood slowly, her mind racing through everything she knew about trauma, about communication, about healing. She'd spent 2 decades studying animal psychology, but in 30 seconds, this 7-year-old had demonstrated an understanding of traumatic response that Catherine had seen in maybe 3 people in her entire career. "Sophia," Catherine said quietly, "I know this is unusual, and I know what just happened was terrifying, but I need to ask you something, and you can absolutely say no." "What?" "I think Emma might be able to help Titan in ways none of us can. Would you be willing to let her visit him under very controlled conditions with full safety protocols in place?" "Absolutely not." Sophia stood up so fast her chair tipped over. "Dr. Hayes, that dog could kill her in seconds. He could have killed her today. He didn't. He didn't have the chance. She was on the other side of a fence. A fence he'd already proven he could bend with enough force. Sophia, I watched his body language. I've been reading dogs for 20 years. He wasn't held back by that fence. He was choosing not to approach. There's a difference. The difference could be my daughter's life." Catherine held up her hands. "You're right. You're absolutely right. I'm not suggesting we throw caution away. I'm suggesting we follow Emma's lead at her pace with every possible safety measure. But Sophia," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "I've seen a lot of traumatized animals, and I've seen a lot of different healing methods. But I've never seen anything like what just happened in that yard. Your daughter has a gift." Emma tugged on Catherine's sleeve. "Can I see him again?" "No," Sophia said firmly. "No, absolutely not. Mama, he needs... I don't care what he needs. I need you safe. Do you understand? I can't lose you too." The last words came out as a sob, and suddenly Sophia was on her knees holding Emma, crying into her daughter's shoulder, while Emma patted her back with the patient understanding of someone who'd learned very young that sometimes you had to be the strong one. Catherine stepped back, giving them space. Through the window she could see Titan pacing again, but differently now. Still agitated, still trapped in his trauma, but every few seconds he'd pause and look toward the office building as if some part of him knew that the person who'd made the world feel manageable for a few brief minutes was inside. Jake appeared in the doorway. "Catherine, we need to talk about protocol. If that little girl is going to be anywhere near that dog..." "She's not," Sophia said, standing up and wiping her eyes. "She's not going near him again. I appreciate what you're trying to do, Dr. Hayes, but my daughter isn't an experiment." "I'm not suggesting she is. Then what are you suggesting? That a 7-year-old child is the solution to a problem that trained professionals can't solve? That I should risk my only child because a traumatized police dog seemed calm around her for 5 minutes? Catherine opened her mouth, then closed it. Because Sophia was right. Everything about what Catherine was suggesting violated every professional protocol she'd ever followed. And yet, the dog saved someone's life once, Emma said quietly. Both women turned to look at her. That's what the man said. The dog pulled him out of a fire. He was a hero. Yes, Catherine said. He was. So he knows how to protect people. He knows how to be brave when someone needs him. He just forgot. Emma looked up at her mother. I forgot how to talk after Daddy died, but you waited and you were patient and you didn't make me feel bad for forgetting. And then one day I remembered. Maybe the dog just needs someone to be patient while he remembers. Sophia closed her eyes. Emma, baby, you're 7 years old. You shouldn't have to. I know, but I want to help. Please, Mama. The silence stretched out. Catherine could see the war happening behind Sophia's eyes, the mother's instinct to protect warring with the recognition that her daughter was asking for something that mattered deeply to her, something that might help Emma as much as it helped Titan. Finally, Sophia looked at Catherine. If, and this is a massive if I even consider this, what would it look like? Catherine let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. We start small. Emma sits outside the enclosure, never closer than 10 feet. I'll have Jake positioned with a tranquilizer gun. We'll have a safety team protocols emergency plans. She'll never enter the enclosure. She'll never touch him. Just presence. Just showing him that someone can be near him without fear. For how long? We'll try 10 minutes tomorrow. See how both of them respond. If there's any sign of aggression, any indication that Titan is escalating instead of calming, we stop immediately. Sophia looked down at Emma, who was gazing up at her with an expression of such hope and determination that it broke something in Sophia's careful defenses. 10 minutes, Sophia said finally. Tomorrow, with every safety protocol you can think of. And if anything feels wrong, even slightly wrong, we're done. Understood? Understood, Catherine said. Can I bring my drawing pad? Emma asked. Why? Because talking is hard when you're scared, but pictures are easier. Maybe he'd like to see pictures. Catherine and Sophia exchanged a look over Emma's head, the same thought passing between them. This child understood trauma in ways that should be impossible for someone her age, which meant she'd learned it firsthand. You can bring your drawing pad, Catherine said softly. That night after Sophia took Emma home, Catherine sat in her office reviewing Titan's file for the 100th time. Mitchell's incident report from the warehouse fire, the behavioral assessments from 3 different trainers, the medical records showing injuries consistent with blast exposure and smoke inhalation, the final recommendations signed by the department's head of K9 operations, unsuitable for continued service. Recommend immediate retirement and behavioral euthanasia. She'd read about this moment in other cases, the moment when an animal's trauma became too much for human systems to handle, when the cost of healing exceeded the perceived value of the healed, when it became easier to eliminate the problem than to solve it. She'd saved dogs from that fate before. But Titan was different. Titan wasn't just traumatized. He was professionally trained to be dangerous, and his trauma had turned that training into something unpredictable. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jake. You sure about this? She texted back, no, but I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. His response came quickly. That little girl sees something in him. I know. What if she's wrong? Catherine stared at her phone for a long moment before typing, what if she's right? The next morning came cold and gray, the kind of morning where the sun doesn't quite manage to break through the clouds. Catherine arrived at the center early and found Jake already there setting up the safety perimeter. 3 tranq guns, he said, pointing to the stations he'd established. 1 for me, 1 for Marcus, 1 for you. I've got the dosage calibrated for rapid deployment. If that dog so much as twitches wrong, he's down in 4 seconds. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Hope's a luxury when you're dealing with an 85-pound loaded weapon with PTSD. He's not a weapon, Jake. He's a dog who's been through hell. Those 2 things aren't mutually exclusive. Sophia's car pulled in at exactly 9 a.m. She got out slowly, then went around to open Emma's door. The little girl emerged holding her drawing pad against her chest like a shield. Catherine walked over. "Morning. How are you feeling, Emma?" "Okay." "You remember what we talked about yesterday? About staying outside the fence, about moving slowly, about leaving immediately if we ask you to?" Emma nodded. "Okay, let's get started." The walk across the yard felt longer than it was. Titan was already up pacing, but when he caught sight of Emma, his movement changed, became less frantic, more purposeful. "He remembers her," Jake murmured. They stopped at the mark Jake had painted on the ground 10 feet from the fence. Emma looked up at Catherine. "Can I sit?" "Yes, but if he charges the fence, you stand up and move back. Promise." "Promise." Emma sat cross-legged in the dust and opened her drawing pad. She began drawing, her small hand moving confidently across the page. She didn't look at Titan. She didn't try to call him or coax him. She just drew. Titan stopped pacing. He stood at the fence watching her. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. "His cortisol response is decreasing," Jake whispered. "Look at his stance. Ears forward, weight balanced. He's curious, not threatened." "How long has it been?" Sophia asked, her voice tight. 5 minutes, Catherine said. "Emma, honey, maybe you should—" "Shh," Emma said, not looking up from her drawing. "He's listening." "Listening to what?" Sophia asked. "You're not saying anything." "Not with words, but he hears anyway." And the impossible thing was, she seemed to be right, because Titan had lowered himself to the ground, now lying down with his head on his paws, still watching Emma, but no longer coiled with tension. Just watching, listening, present. The 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 20. "Emma?" Catherine said gently. "I think that's enough for today." Emma looked up from her drawing, then carefully tore the page from her pad. She stood, walked to within 3 feet of the fence, and held up the picture. "Emma!" Sophia gasped, lurching forward, but Titan didn't move. He just looked at the picture, his head tilting in that universal dog gesture of confusion mixed with interest. The drawing showed 2 figures. One was clearly a dog rendered in the blocky, simple style of a 7-year-old's art. The other was a small person. They were sitting together, and above them, Emma had drawn a sun with rays stretching across the page. "It's not scary here," Emma said to Titan. "I promise." Then she carefully pushed the drawing through the fence and stepped back. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Titan rose, walked slowly to the fence, and gently picked up the drawing in his mouth. He carried it back to the shelter at the rear of his enclosure and laid it down carefully like something precious. "Dear God," Jake breathed. Sophia was crying again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else. Recognition, perhaps. Recognition that her daughter had just done something extraordinary. "Same time tomorrow?" Emma asked Catherine. Catherine looked at Jake, who nodded slowly, then at Sophia, who nodded too, still crying. "Same time tomorrow," Catherine confirmed. As they walked back to the building, Emma slipped her small hand into her mother's and said something that made every adult in earshot stop walking. "The dog's name is wrong, Mama. He's not Titan. That's a scary name for someone who's scared. His name should be something gentler." "Like what, baby?" "Like hope. Because that's what he needs someone to give him." Catherine watched them walk away, watched Emma's small figure and Sophia's protective posture, and thought about all the cases she'd handled in 20 years, all the dogs she'd saved, all the animals she'd rehabilitated, all the impossible situations she'd navigated. None of them had prepared her for a 7-year-old who understood trauma better than most therapists. That night, Catherine updated Titan's file. In the section marked Behavioral Notes, she wrote, "Day 1 of unconventional approach. Patient showed marked decrease in aggressive responses when in proximity to minor child. Subject remained calm for 20+ minutes. No signs of predatory behavior. Recommend continued observation." Then in the section marked Prognosis, she changed the status from poor to guarded, but showing unexpected improvement. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And sometimes she thought a start is all a broken soul needs to believe that maybe, just maybe, the story isn't over yet. To be continued. The second morning, Emma brought crayons. Sophia had barely slept, lying awake, replaying the image of her daughter's small hand pushing that drawing through the fence of those massive jaws so close to Emma's fingers. But when Emma climbed into the car, clutching her art supplies with quiet determination, Sophia knew there was no turning back from whatever this was becoming. Jake was already at his post when they arrived, tranquilizer gun loaded and ready. He nodded at Sophia, his face grim, but not unkind. "How long are we doing this today?" Sophia asked Catherine. "Let's try 20 minutes, see if he maintains yesterday's progress. And if he doesn't, then we reassess." But the question everyone was thinking, the one nobody wanted to voice, was simpler and more terrible. And if something goes wrong, if those jaws that had hospitalized 3 men decided that this small girl was a threat, how fast could Jake pull that trigger? Fast enough. Emma walked to her spot and sat down. This time she didn't wait, didn't ease into it. She looked directly at Titan and said, "I brought more colors today." Titan's ears pricked forward. He was already at the fence waiting. Not pacing, not growling. Waiting. "That's different," Jake murmured. "He's anticipating her. That's either very good or very bad." Emma began drawing. Titan watched every stroke, his head following the movement of her hand across the paper. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then Emma did something that made Sophia's heart stop. She stood up and walked to within 2 feet of the fence. "Emma, no!" Sophia lunged forward, but Catherine grabbed her arm. "Wait," Catherine whispered urgently. "Look at him." Titan hadn't moved. His body language was completely open ears. Forward tail in a neutral position, eyes soft. Emma held up her new drawing. This one showed a dog and a girl sitting side by side, but this time there were other people in the background watching. Small figures rendered in Emma's careful, childish strokes. "These are the people who want to help you," Emma said to Titan. "But they're scared because you're scared. It's like when 2 people are both scared and they make each other more scared. Do you know what I mean?" Titan's tail moved. Just once, a slight wag, but everyone saw it. "Did that dog just—" Jake's voice caught. "He responded to her," Catherine breathed. "He actually responded." Emma pushed the drawing through the fence. This time Titan came forward immediately and took it gently, so gently that his teeth barely touched the paper. He carried it back to his shelter where yesterday's drawing still lay, placed the new one beside it, then returned to the fence and lay down directly across from where Emma stood. "I think he wants me closer," Emma said. "Absolutely not," Sophia said, finding her voice. "Emma, step back right now." "But Mama—" "Now, Emma." Emma stepped back, but her eyes never left Titan's, and his never left hers. The connection between them was so tangible that it felt like something you could reach out and touch, a thread spun from understanding and need and something else that none of the adults could quite name. When the 20 minutes ended and Emma walked away, Titan released a sound that made Jake's hand go to his gun reflexively. But it wasn't a growl. It was a whine, high and plaintive, the sound of a creature watching its anchor disappear. "He's bonding with her," Catherine said quietly. "This is happening faster than I expected." "Is that good?" Sophia asked. "I don't know yet. It means he's opening up, which is what we want. But it also means he's focusing all his trust on one person. If something disrupts that bond—" "Don't," Sophia said sharply. "Don't finish that sentence." That afternoon, Catherine received a call from Officer Mitchell. "How's he doing?" Mitchell asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Better. Surprisingly better." "Define better." Catherine chose her words carefully. "He's showing decreased aggression, improved focus, and responding to positive stimuli." "What kind of stimuli?" She hesitated. "There's a child, a 7-year-old girl. She's been sitting near his enclosure. He responds to her presence." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that Catherine thought the call had dropped. "Mitchell, a child." His voice was tight. "You're telling me the dog that put 3 grown men in the hospital is being rehabilitated by a 7-year-old?" I know how it sounds. Do you? Because it sounds insane. It sounds dangerous. It sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen, or worse, a tragedy. The child is never in physical contact with him. We have safety protocols. Catherine, I pulled that dog out of a building that was literally exploding around us. I've seen him take down suspects twice his size. I've watched him work scenarios that would make your blood run cold. And you're telling me a little girl with crayons is the answer? I'm telling you that your partner is responding to something in her that he hasn't responded to in anyone else. I'm telling you that for the first time since he arrived here, he's showing signs of the dog he used to be. Mitchell's breathing was heavy on the line. I want to come see him. I don't think that's a good idea yet. His trauma is specifically linked to... I know what his trauma is linked to. I was there. I'm the one who couldn't reach him afterward. I'm the one who had to sign the papers sending him away. His voice broke. I'm the one who failed him. You didn't fail him, Mitchell. You survived. That's what he needed you to do. Then why does it feel like I left him burning in that building? Catherine had no answer for that. So she said the only thing she could, come by tomorrow, late afternoon after the girl has finished her session. We'll see how he reacts to you. And if he reacts badly, then we'll know he's not ready yet. But Mitchell, eventually he'll need to see that you survived too. That you made it out. Maybe that's part of what he needs to heal. After she hung up, Catherine sat in her office watching Titan through the window. He was lying in his shelter, both of Emma's drawings arranged carefully in front of him, his head on his paws. Every few minutes he'd look toward the office building as if hoping to see her again. You're transferring your trust to her, Catherine murmured, which means if we're not careful, we're just trading one dependence for another. Jake knocked on her door frame. Got a minute? Sure. He came in, closed the door, and sat down heavily. I've been doing this job for 41 years, seen every kind of animal behavior you can imagine. But what that little girl is doing, I've never seen anything like it. Neither have I. My concern is what happens when she's not here. Is he going to regress? Is he going to become aggressive again? And what happens when... He paused. When she stops coming? What makes you think she'll stop? Catherine, she's 7 years old. 7-year-olds lose interest. They move on. They have school and friends and birthday parties. She's not going to be able to come here every single day forever. And when that stops, what happens to him? It was the question Catherine had been avoiding, the one that kept her up at night. Because Jake was right. Emma was a child, and children were mercurial by nature. What happened when the novelty wore off? What happened when Emma got scared or bored or simply grew up and moved on to other things? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Catherine said. That's not a plan. That's hope dressed up as strategy. Sometimes hope is all we have. The third morning, Emma asked a question that changed everything. Can I go inside? She said, standing at her usual spot while Titan watched from his place at the fence. Every adult present froze. No, Sophia said immediately. Absolutely not. He's ready, Emma insisted. Look at him. He's not scared anymore when I'm here. Emma, that dog is trained to be dangerous. Jake said, his voice gentle but firm. Just because he's calm now doesn't mean he's safe. But he is safe. I know he is. You can't know that, sweetheart, Catherine said. Even dogs that seem calm can react unpredictably to things that trigger their trauma. I won't trigger him. I'll be careful. Emma, the answer is no, Sophia said. And we're not discussing this anymore. But Emma's face had set in that stubborn expression Sophia knew too well. The same expression Emma's father used to get when he'd decided something was right and nothing would convince him otherwise. The session continued, but the tension was different now. Emma drew tight and watched, but there was a restlessness in both of them, as if they'd reached some invisible barrier and didn't know how to move beyond it. When the 20 minutes ended, Emma stood slowly. She looked at Titan for a long moment, then said something that made Sophia's blood run cold. Soon, Emma said to the dog. I promise. In the car on the way home, Sophia gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Emma, you cannot go inside that enclosure. Do you understand me? You cannot and you will not. But Mama, no buts. That dog is dangerous. He's not dangerous to me. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. Emma was quiet for a moment, staring out the window. Then she said, "After Daddy died, people said I was dangerous too." Sophia nearly swerved off the road. "What, Emma? Who said that?" "I heard Mrs. Peterson talking to you. She said I might hurt myself because I was too sad and too quiet. She said you should watch me all the time because sometimes kids who lose parents do dangerous things." Sophia's heart broke into smaller pieces than she'd thought possible. Baby Mrs. Peterson was worried. She didn't mean, but she was wrong. I wasn't dangerous. I was just sad and scared, and I didn't know how to talk about it yet. Emma turned to look at her mother. "The dog is sad and scared too. He doesn't know how to talk about it, but I do. I remember, and I can help him remember it's okay to trust again." Sophia pulled the car over to the side of the road because she couldn't see through her tears anymore. She unbuckled her seatbelt, reached back, and pulled Emma forward into an awkward hug over the center console. "I'm so sorry," Sophia whispered. "I'm so sorry you heard that. I'm so sorry you've been carrying that. You were never dangerous, baby. Never. You were grieving, and grief isn't dangerous. It's just so hard." "I know," Emma said, patting her mother's back the way she always did, the child comforting the parent. "That's why I can help the dog, because I know how hard it is." That night, Sophia called Catherine. "She wants to go inside the enclosure," Sophia said without preamble. "I know. I'm not going to allow it." What if she's right? Silence on the other end. Then, "Sophia, are you hearing yourself? Yesterday you were terrified she'd get too close to the fence. Now you're asking if she should go inside. I'm asking if my daughter understands something about trauma that we don't. I'm asking if maybe the reason we can't reach that dog is because we're approaching him with fear and she's approaching him with understanding. Understanding doesn't stop teeth from tearing flesh. No, but maybe it stops the need to use them." Sophia took a shaky breath. "My daughter stopped speaking for 4 months after her father died. 4 months of silence while I tried everything therapy, medication, specialists. Nothing worked. You know what finally worked? I stopped trying to fix her. I stopped trying to make her talk. I just sat with her in the silence and let her know it was okay to be there for as long as she needed. And one day she started talking again. Not because I pushed her, because I finally gave her space to heal at her own pace." Catherine was quiet for a long time. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that maybe Emma knows how to give that dog what he needs because someone gave it to her. And maybe we need to trust that. Trust is one thing, risking your daughter's life is another." "I know. Believe me, I know. But Catherine, I watched her today. I watched the way she looked at that dog. And I saw something I haven't seen in her since her father died." "What?" "Purpose. My daughter has spent 2 years trying to make sense of a world that took away the person she loved most. And now she's found someone who needs the thing she finally understands how to give. If I take that away from her, if I let my fear stop her from doing something this important..." Her voice broke. "I'm not sure I'll be protecting her. I might just be teaching her that fear wins." The next morning, Mitchell showed up 2 hours before Emma's scheduled session. Catherine met him in the parking lot. "I need to see him first," Mitchell said. "Before the girl gets here, I need to know if there's anything left of my partner." They walked to the enclosure together. Titan was already up pacing, but when he saw Mitchell, everything changed. The growl started low building in his chest like thunder before a storm. His hackles rose, his body tensed, and every line of him screamed danger. "Easy, Titan," Mitchell said, his voice breaking. "Easy, boy. It's me. It's Marcus." But the name that had once meant safety, that had once meant partnership and trust, now meant something else entirely. It meant the warehouse. It meant the explosion. It meant the moment when the world caught fire, and everything Titan knew how to be burned away. Titan lunged at the fence with such force that both Catherine and Mitchell stumbled backward. "He doesn't know you," Catherine said quietly. "He knows me. He just can't separate me from what happened." Mitchell's face was wet. "I should have died in that warehouse. Maybe if I had, he wouldn't be like this. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. He saved my life, and it broke him. Some trade. They stood there for a moment, Mitchell staring at the dog who used to be his partner, Titan snarling at the man who used to be his handler, and between them a chasm so wide that Catherine didn't know if anything could bridge it. Then Emma's car pulled into the lot. Mitchell turned. That's her. That's her. He watched as Sophia helped Emma out of the car, watched as the little girl gathered her drawing supplies, watched as she walked toward them with the confidence of someone who'd never learned to be afraid of the things she was supposed to fear. She's so small, Mitchell whispered. I know. How is someone that small doing what a whole department couldn't? I don't think she's doing anything. I think she's just being present, and somehow that's enough. Emma reached them and looked up at Mitchell with curious eyes. Are you the policeman who got saved? Mitchell crouched down to her level. Yeah, I'm him. He remembers you. I don't think he wants to remember me. Emma tilted her head, studying him. He remembers you being scared. That's different than remembering you. When people are really scared, they don't look like themselves anymore. They look like the scared thing that happened to them. Maybe he just needs to see you when you're not scared. Mitchell stared at this 7-year-old who'd just articulated what 3 therapists had tried to explain to him in far more complicated terms. How do I do that? He asked. You watch, Emma said simply. Then she walked to her spot and sat down. Titan's transformation was immediate. The snarling stopped. The tension drained from his body. He walked to the fence and lay down his entire focus on Emma. Mitchell watched in stunned silence as Emma began to draw, as Titan watched her with something that looked almost like peace, as the rage that had dominated the dog's every moment for 8 months simply dissolved in the presence of this small girl, with her crayons and her understanding. My God, Mitchell breathed. She's actually doing it. She's bringing him back. But what happened next proved that healing was never a straight line. Emma stood up, drawing in hand, and walked to the fence. She'd done this before. It was routine now. But this time with Mitchell's presence adding a layer of stress that Titan couldn't quite process, something shifted. Titan rose quickly, too quickly, his movement jerky and uncertain. Emma pushed the drawing through the fence and Titan reached for it, but his timing was off his control, slipping. His jaws closed too close to Emma's fingers, so close that everyone heard Emma's sharp intake of breath. Emma! Sophia screamed, running forward. Jake had the tranquilizer gun up and aimed before anyone could blink. But Emma didn't pull back. She stayed perfectly still, her hand still partly through the fence, and she looked at Titan with eyes that held no fear, only understanding. It's okay, she said softly. You didn't mean to scare me. I know you didn't. Titan dropped the drawing and backed away from the fence, his body language suddenly submissive ears, flat head, low tail, tucked. He'd scared her. He knew he'd scared her, and the realization seemed to shatter something in him. He backed further into the enclosure, pressed himself against the far wall, and began to shake. He thinks I'm afraid of him, Emma said, her voice carrying across the sudden silence. He thinks he hurt me. Emma, come away from the fence, Catherine said carefully. Come away right now. But Emma was already pushing her whole arm through the fence, holding the drawing out as far as she could reach. I'm not afraid, look, I'm not afraid. Emma, no! Multiple voices shouted at once. Titan stared at her from across the enclosure, shaking so hard that his legs could barely hold him up. And in his eyes was something that broke every heart in that yard, shame. Pure, devastating shame. Emma pulled her arm back slowly, carefully. She held up the drawing so Titan could see it from where he stood. This one showed a dog and a girl, and between them, Emma had drawn a heart. You didn't hurt me, Emma called out. You could never hurt me. I know who you really are. Titan took one tentative step forward, then another, moving like a dog who'd forgotten how to trust his own body, how to believe in his own goodness. Emma sat down and patted the ground in front of her on her side of the fence. Come here, please. And slowly, shakily, Titan came. He crossed the enclosure, stopped at the fence, and pressed his head against the chain link exactly where Emma's hand rested on the other side, as close as they could get with steel between them. "I need to go inside," Emma said, not taking her eyes off Titan. "He needs to know I trust him completely. He needs to know he's safe with me." "No," Sophia said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "He's ashamed," Emma continued. "He thinks he's bad. He thinks he's dangerous, but he's not. He's just scared, and he doesn't know how to stop being scared because everyone keeps treating him like he's something to be afraid of. But I'm not afraid, and I need him to believe that." Mitchell stepped forward. "I'll go in with her." Everyone turned to stare at him. "Marcus, that's insane," Catherine said. "He just tried to bite at her." "He didn't try to bite her. He miscalculated. There's a difference." Mitchell's voice was steady now, certain. "That dog has never once tried to hurt someone who wasn't trying to restrain him or control him. Every incident in his record happened when someone tried to force him into something. She's not forcing him, she's asking, and he's saying yes." "You don't know that," Jake said. "Yeah, I do, because I trained him. I know his every signal, his every movement. And what I just saw wasn't aggression that got interrupted. It was shame, because he thought he scared someone he cares about." Mitchell looked at Sophia. "That dog loves your daughter. And I've never said that lightly, but I'm telling you now that dog would die before he hurt her." "You can't guarantee that," Sophia said. "No, but I'm willing to bet my life on it. Literally. I'll go in first. If he attacks me, then we know. But if he doesn't, if he lets me in because Emma asks him to, then we'll know that too." The silence was suffocating. Catherine looked at Jake, who shook his head slowly. She looked at Sophia, whose face had gone pale. She looked at Emma, who was still sitting with her hand pressed against the fence. Titan's head pressed against the other side. "This is a terrible idea," Catherine said finally. "This violates every protocol I have. If anything goes wrong..." "Then it's on me," Mitchell said. "Not you, not the center, me. And if you die in there, then I'll die knowing I finally had the guts to trust him the way he trusted me in that warehouse." Catherine closed her eyes. 20 years of professional experience screamed at her to say no. But something else, something deeper and harder to name, whispered that maybe the only way forward was through the fear, not around it. "If we do this," she said slowly, "we do it right. Full medical team on standby, tranquilizer guns positioned, emergency protocols in place. And the absolute second, anything feels wrong, we shut it down." "Agreed." Mitchell nodded. "Agreed." Sophia made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "I can't believe I'm agreeing to this. I can't believe I'm going to let my baby..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Emma stood and walked to her mother. "Mama, the dog needs this. And I need this. Please trust me." Sophia knelt and held her daughter's face in her hands. "If anything happens to you, nothing will happen. You can't know that. Yes, I can. The same way you knew I'd talk again when I was ready. You just knew. And I know this." Sophia pulled Emma into a fierce hug, then let her go, because sometimes loving someone meant trusting them to do the thing that terrified you most. "Okay," Sophia whispered. "Okay." They spent the next hour setting up, medical team positioned, tranquilizer guns loaded and aimed, emergency exits planned. Catherine went over the protocol 17 times until everyone could recite it in their sleep. And through it all, Titan waited at the fence, his eyes never leaving Emma, his body language asking a question over and over. When? When can we be in the same space? When does the fence come down? Finally, everything was ready. Mitchell stood at the enclosure gate, his hand on the latch. "Last chance to back out," Catherine said. "Not a chance." He looked at Emma. "You ready?" Emma nodded. "Tell him you're coming in because I asked you to. Tell him you're not here to control him." Mitchell turned to Titan. "Hey, partner, I'm coming in. Not as your handler, not as your boss, just as someone who wants to help, if that's okay with you." Titan's ears flicked forward. He looked at Emma, then back at Mitchell, then at Emma again. "You have to let him..." Emma called out to Titan. So I can come in too, that's the deal. And somehow impossibly Titan seemed to understand. He backed away from the gate, settled himself in a sitting position and waited. Mitchell opened the gate and stepped inside. Every person in that yard stopped breathing as Mitchell's boot touched the ground inside Titan's enclosure. Titan didn't move. His eyes tracked Mitchell's every step, every shift of weight, but his body remained still. Not relaxed. Still. The kind of stillness that could explode into violence in half a heartbeat. "Good boy," Mitchell said softly, his voice shaking despite his steady posture. "Good boy, Titan." The name seemed to register. Titan's ears twitched and something flickered across his expression that might have been recognition or might have been pain. With trauma, the two were often impossible to tell apart. Mitchell took another step, then another. He was 8 feet away now. 6. Close enough that if Titan decided to attack, there'd be no time to react, no time for Jake to pull that trigger, no time for anything but the inevitable conclusion. "I'm sorry," Mitchell whispered, and his voice cracked completely. "I'm so sorry I couldn't reach you after. I'm sorry I let them send you away. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to save you the way you saved me." Titan's head lowered, not in aggression, in something else. "He hears you," Emma called from outside the fence. "He just doesn't know if he can trust it yet." Mitchell stopped moving. He was 5 feet from Titan now, close enough to see the scars hidden in the dog's fur, close enough to see the way Titan's legs trembled with the effort of holding himself still against every instinct that screamed at him to run or fight. "What do I do?" Mitchell asked. And he wasn't asking Catherine or Jake or Sophia. He was asking Emma. "Sit down," Emma said. "Make yourself smaller. Show him you're not trying to be in charge." Mitchell lowered himself to the ground slowly, never breaking eye contact with Titan. He sat cross-legged in the dust, his hands open and visible on his knees, and he waited. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2. Then Titan stood. Jake's finger tightened on the trigger. Sophia grabbed Catherine's arm so hard it would leave bruises. Mitchell held perfectly still, barely breathing. Titan walked forward. 3 steps. 4. He stopped directly in front of Mitchell, so close that Mitchell could feel the heat radiating from the dog's body. And then Titan did something that made Mitchell's face crumble completely. Titan pressed his head into Mitchell's chest and released a sound that was half whine, half sob, a sound of such raw, unfiltered grief that it didn't seem possible it could come from an animal. Mitchell's arms came up slowly and wrapped around the dog who'd once been his partner, who'd pulled him from fire and lost himself in the process. And Mitchell wept into Titan's fur while Titan shook against him, both of them finally releasing the fear and pain and shame they'd been carrying since the night the world exploded. "He forgives you," Emma said quietly. "He just needed you to forgive yourself first." Sophia was crying openly now. Catherine had her hand over her mouth. Even Jake had lowered the tranquilizer gun, his weathered face wet. Mitchell pulled back finally, scrubbing at his eyes with his sleeve. "Okay," he said to Titan, his voice rough. "Okay, partner. Your turn. Someone else needs you now." He looked toward the gate where Emma stood waiting, her small hand wrapped around the chain link, her face solemn with the weight of what she was about to do. "You ready?" Mitchell called to her. Emma nodded. "Sophia," Catherine said quietly, "you can still stop this." But Sophia was watching her daughter's face, seeing something there that she'd been afraid to acknowledge until now. Emma wasn't doing this to prove something, or to win something, or because she didn't understand the danger. Emma was doing this because she recognized something in Titan that she'd lived through herself, the desperate, aching need for someone to see past the fear to the person still trapped underneath. "Let her in," Sophia whispered. Catherine opened the gate. Emma stepped through, and the gate closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like thunder in the breathless silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Emma stood just inside the enclosure. Mitchell sat in the middle with Titan pressed against him, and the entire world seemed to be holding its breath. "Hi," Emma said to Titan. "I'm here now, like I promised." Titan's head lifted from Mitchell's chest. His eyes found Emma, and something in them shifted, softened, opened. He pulled away from Mitchell and took one step toward Emma, then another, moving slowly, carefully, as if he were approaching something precious and fragile that might break if he moved too fast. Emma didn't move. She stood with her arms at her sides, her face calm, her breathing even. "It's okay," she said. "You can come closer." Titan reached her and stopped his nose inches from her face. For 3 heartbeats they stayed frozen like that. The girl and the dog, both of them survivors of different fires, both of them learning how to trust again. Then Emma lifted her hand very slowly and placed it on top of Titan's head. The contact seemed to unlock something in Titan. He pressed forward into her touch, not roughly, but with the desperate need of a creature who'd been starving for gentleness and had finally found it. Emma's other hand came up, and then she was stroking his head, his ears, his scarred shoulders, and Titan was leaning into her with his eyes closed and his tail wagging slowly, finally for the first time since the fire. "There you are," Emma whispered. "There's the real you." Mitchell stood slowly backing toward the gate, giving them space. He slipped out and closed it behind him, and nobody stopped him, because everyone understood that this moment belonged to Emma and Titan alone. "She's doing it," Jake breathed. "She's actually reaching him." But Catherine was watching more carefully than that. She saw the way Titan's body was still tense despite the wagging tail, saw the way his eyes kept darting to the corners of the enclosure, saw the way he startled at every small sound. Emma had reached him, yes, but reaching someone and healing them were 2 different things. Emma seemed to sense it too. She sat down in the dust, and Titan immediately lay down beside her, pressing his body against hers, like she was the only solid thing in a world that had become quicksand. "Tell me about the fire," Emma said quietly. Everyone outside the fence stiffened. Mitchell's face went white. "Emma, no!" Sophia called out. "Don't!" But Emma wasn't talking to them. She was talking to Titan, and somehow, impossibly, it seemed like Titan understood. "It was really scary, wasn't it?" Emma continued, her hands still moving in steady strokes through Titan's fur. "You went into the building because that's your job. You're supposed to keep people safe. But then everything got hot and loud and scary, and you couldn't keep yourself safe. You could only keep Officer Mitchell safe. So that's what you did. You saved him. But nobody saved you." Titan's breathing had changed, coming faster, shallower. His body began to shake. "Emma, he's escalating," Catherine warned. "You need to stay calm." "I am calm," Emma said. "He's the one who's scared. He's remembering." And she was right. Titan's eyes had gone distant, his body rigid, and a low growl started building in his chest. Emma stand up slowly and walked toward the gate. Catherine said, her voice tight with controlled panic. "No," Emma said simply. "He needs to remember all of it, not just the scary parts." "Emma." "You saved Officer Mitchell," Emma said louder now, her voice cutting through Titan's growing distress. "You were so brave. You went back into the fire and you pulled him out and you saved his life. You're a hero. Do you remember that part? Do you remember being brave?" The growl caught in Titan's throat. His eyes focused on Emma again, confusion replacing the distant terror. "You were the bravest," Emma said, and now she was crying, tears running down her face. "Just like my daddy was brave when he pushed me out of the way of the car. He saved me, and then he was gone. And everyone told me I should be grateful, I should be happy I was alive, but I wasn't. I was just sad and scared because being saved hurt almost as much as the scary thing. Do you understand? Being saved hurt you too?" Titan's growl stopped completely. He stared at Emma with something that looked heartbreakingly close to comprehension. "It's okay to be sad about it," Emma whispered. "It's okay that saving someone hurt you. You're allowed to be hurt. You don't have to be brave all the time." And then Titan did something that no one expected, something that broke and rebuilt every heart watching. He rolled over onto his back, exposing his belly in the ultimate gesture of trust and submission, and he looked up at Emma with eyes that finally looked clear. "Oh my God," Mitchell whispered. "He's surrendering. He's letting go." Emma placed her hand on Titan's chest, right over his heart. You're safe now. I promise. You're safe, and you're good, and you're loved. The fire is over. You got out. You both got out. Sophia was sobbing so hard that Catherine had to support her weight. Jake had turned away, his shoulders shaking. Mitchell stood with his hands pressed against the fence, watching his former partner finally release the burden he'd been carrying for 8 months. Emma lay down in the dust beside Titan, curling her small body against his large one, and Titan's tail thumped weakly against the ground. Not with joy, with relief. Pure, exhausted relief. They stayed like that for 20 minutes while everyone watched in silence. Sometimes Emma would whisper something to Titan. Sometimes she'd just breathe with him. And slowly, gradually, Titan's shaking stopped. His breathing evened out. The constant vigilance that had defined every moment of his existence since the fire began to ease. We need to get her out of there, Jake said finally. This is incredible, but we need to maintain some protocol. Give them 5 more minutes, Catherine said. Let them finish this. But Emma was already sitting up. She kissed the top of Titan's head, whispered something that only he could hear, and then stood. I have to go now, but I'll come back tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Every day until you know for sure that you're safe. Okay. Titan's tail wagged. Actually wagged. Emma walked to the gate. Mitchell opened it and she stepped through. The moment she was clear, Sophia grabbed her and held on like Emma might disappear if she let go. Don't you ever scare me like that again, Sophia choked out. I wasn't scared, Mama, so you didn't need to be either. That's not how being a mother works, baby. Catherine approached slowly. Emma, what you just did, I've never seen anything like it. But you understand that we can't let you go in there alone, right? Not yet. Maybe not ever. It's too dangerous. He's not dangerous anymore, Emma said. Not to me. Even safe dogs can hurt people by accident. He's a very big dog and you're a very small girl. I know, but he'll be careful. You'll see. Over the next week, Emma proved herself right. She went into Titan's enclosure every morning, sometimes with Mitchell, sometimes with Jake. Never alone, but always fearless. And Titan transformed before everyone's eyes. The constant pacing stopped. The aggression disappeared. He began responding to basic commands again, but only when Emma asked. He started playing with toys that Emma brought, gentle games of tug-of-war, where he was always careful not to pull too hard. The department got word of the progress. They sent evaluators who watched in stunned silence as Emma sat inside the enclosure doing her homework, while Titan dozed with his head in her lap. They reviewed the footage. They consulted with specialists. And finally, they made a decision. Catherine called Mitchell to deliver the news. They're not going to euthanize him. Mitchell's breath caught. They're not. No, they're classifying him as rehabilitated with restrictions. He can't return to active duty, but they're willing to release him to permanent civilian custody. Who gets custody? That's the complicated part. They want him to go with Emma. But Sophia... Catherine paused. Sophia's barely making ends meet as it is. She can't afford to take care of an 85-pound German Shepherd with specialized needs. And legally, she can't adopt him without proving she has adequate housing and resources. Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, What if she had both? What do you mean? I've got a house with a yard, 3 bedrooms, and I've got the pension from the department plus disability. What if they came to live with me, Sophia and Emma, just until they can get on their feet financially, or longer if they want? I could help with Titan, make sure he stays stable. Marcus, that's incredibly generous, but you barely know them. I know that little girl saved my partner's life. I know she saved my life too, in a way. I know that dog would die for her, which means I owe her everything he would have given me if I'd been able to reach him myself. So yeah, I know them. Maybe not in the normal way, but I know what matters. Catherine relayed the offer to Sophia that afternoon. Sophia's first response was immediate refusal. I can't accept that. It's too much. We'd be imposing... You'd be helping him, Catherine interrupted. Mitchell blames himself for what happened to Titan. He thinks he should have been able to reach him. letting him be part of Titan's continued healing, letting him help you and Emma. I think he needs that as much as Titan needs Emma. But we're strangers. You can't just move in with strangers. People do it all the time. Roommates, housemates, this would be no different. Except for the part where my 7-year-old daughter would be living with a man we barely know. A police officer with a spotless record who loved his partner enough to drive 3 hours to bring him to the one place that might save him. A man who put himself in danger to help your daughter reach that dog. Sophia, I understand your hesitation, but I also think this might be the answer for everyone. Sophia talked to Emma that night, explained the situation, watched her daughter's face light up with hope. We could see Titan every day, Emma asked. Not just for visits, every day. He'd be ours. Officially ours. Then we have to say yes, Mama. We have to. Baby, it's not that simple. Living with someone is complicated. What if Officer Mitchell has rules we don't like? What if we don't get along? What if it works? Emma interrupted. What if this is what we're supposed to do? What if Titan brought us together for a reason? Sophia looked at her daughter, this wise, strange, wonderful child who'd been through so much and somehow emerged with her capacity for hope intact. And she thought about the alternative, telling Emma that they couldn't keep the dog she'd healed, that all her work, all her bravery, would end with them walking away while Titan went to someone else or someplace else. Okay, Sophia whispered. Okay, we'll try it. They moved in 2 weeks later. Mitchell's house was small but clean, the kind of place where everything had a purpose and nothing was wasted. He'd set up the spare room for Emma with care, fresh paint, new bed sheets, a nightlight shaped like a star. Sophia got the third bedroom. Titan got the entire living room as his space with his own bed, his toys, and all of Emma's drawings taped to the walls. The first night was awkward. Nobody quite knew how to be around each other. Mitchell made dinner spaghetti simple but good, and they ate mostly in silence while Titan lay under the table with his head on Emma's feet. Thank you for this, Sophia said finally. For all of it. I know it's strange having us here. It's not strange, Mitchell said. It's necessary. That dog saved my life. Your daughter saved his. Only seems right that we all figure out how to save each other now. I don't need saving, Sophia said a bit defensively. Maybe not, but you need help, and I need purpose. Seems like we can give each other what we need. Emma looked between the two adults, then said, We're like a pack now. That's what Titan would call it. A pack takes care of each other. Smart kid, Mitchell said, and he almost smiled. The first month was an adjustment. Mitchell was used to order and routine. Sophia was used to chaos and flexibility, and they clashed over things like dishes and schedules, and whose turn it was to walk Titan. But Emma and Titan were the glue that held everything together. When tension ran high, Emma would take Titan outside and they'd play in the yard, and by the time they came back in, whatever argument had been brewing would have diffused. Titan thrived. With Emma nearby constantly, his anxiety decreased dramatically. He started greeting Sophia in the mornings with a wagging tail. He even began to tolerate Mitchell's presence without stress, though he still preferred Emma above everyone else. But 6 weeks in, everything changed. Emma woke up in the middle of the night screaming. Sophia got to her room first. Mitchell right behind her, and they found Emma sitting up in bed sobbing and gasping for air. Baby, what's wrong? What happened? The car, Emma choked out. I dreamed about the car, and Daddy, and I couldn't breathe. Mama, I couldn't breathe. It was the first nightmare she'd had in over a year. Sophia gathered Emma into her arms, but Emma was shaking so hard that Sophia couldn't seem to calm her down, and then Titan appeared in the doorway. Mitchell had let him out of his crate, and Titan had gone straight for Emma's room. He jumped onto the bed without hesitation, pressed himself against Emma's side, and the shaking began to slow. You're okay, Sophia whispered. But it was Titan. Emma was holding onto Titan's fur she was burying her face in. He came to help me, Emma said through her tears, just like I helped him. And that's when everyone in that room understood something crucial. The healing hadn't been one-directional. Emma had saved Titan, yes, but Titan was saving Emma right back. They were mirrors for each other, reflecting the trauma and the healing and showing each other that survival was possible. Mitchell backed out of the room quietly, leaving Sophia and Emma and Titan together. But he stood in the hallway for a long time, listening to Emma's sobs turn to hiccups, turn to quiet breathing, turn to silence. And he thought about partnerships and healing and the strange ways that broken people and broken animals could find each other and somehow become whole. The next morning, Emma was quiet at breakfast. She pushed her cereal around her bowl without eating. "You want to talk about the nightmare?" Sophia asked gently. Emma shook her head. Then after a moment, she said, "I thought I was all better. I thought I didn't have to be sad about Daddy anymore." "Oh, baby. Being better doesn't mean not being sad. It just means the sad doesn't control everything anymore." But I had forgotten for a while. I had stopped thinking about it every day. And then the dream came back, and now I remember again, and it hurts. Mitchell spoke up from where he was washing dishes. Titan still has bad days too. Days where loud noises make him panic. Days where he remembers the fire and gets scared. But those days are getting further apart, and they don't last as long as they used to. That's what healing looks like. Not perfect, just better. Emma considered this. "So I'm allowed to still be sad sometimes." "You're allowed to be sad whenever you need to be," Sophia said. "Just like Titan's allowed to be scared sometimes. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to carry the hard thing without letting it crush you." Emma nodded slowly. Then she looked at Titan, who was sitting beside her chair, watching her with concerned eyes. "Thank you for helping me last night." Titan's tail wagged. "You know what?" Emma said. "I think we should have a party. A healing party. To celebrate how far we've all come." "A healing party?" Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. We can invite Dr. Hayes and Jake and all the people who helped, and we can show them that Titan's not scary anymore. And I can show them that I'm not too sad to be okay. And we can all eat cake." Sophia laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in weeks. "That sounds perfect, baby." They planned the party for the following Saturday. Emma made invitations, drawing pictures of Titan and decorating them with stickers. Sophia baked a cake. Mitchell cleaned the house with military precision. And when the day arrived and people began showing up, something shifted in the atmosphere of that small house. Catherine came with Jake. Both of them stood in the backyard watching Titan play gentle tug-of-war with Emma, and neither of them could quite believe what they were seeing. "It's really him," Jake said. "Same dog, but completely different." "It's what happens when someone finally sees past the trauma to the soul underneath," Catherine said. Emma didn't try to train him or fix him. She just loved him while he remembered how to be himself. Officer Torres showed up with his wife and kids. The children were nervous around Titan at first, but Emma showed them how to approach him slowly, how to let him sniff their hands, how to recognize when he was comfortable. And within 20 minutes, Titan was lying on his back while 3 kids took turns patting his belly and giggling at how his leg kicked. "I never thought I'd see him like this," Torres said to Mitchell. "After what he was like at the department, I honestly thought he was beyond saving." "He was never beyond saving," Mitchell said. "We just didn't know how to speak his language. Took a 7-year-old to teach us." The party went late into the evening. People ate and talked and laughed, and through it all, Titan stayed close to Emma, his constant shadow, his chosen person. And Emma stayed close to him, both of them, understanding that they'd found something rare and precious in each other, someone who knew exactly what it felt like to survive something terrible and have to figure out who you were on the other side. As the last guests were leaving, Catherine pulled Sophia aside. "I need to tell you something," Catherine said. "I've been contacted by a trauma therapy organization. They want to train Emma and Titan as a registered therapy team. They'd work with children who've experienced trauma. Help them the way Emma helped Titan." Sophia's eyes widened. "She's 7 years old." "I know. They'd wait until she's older, of course. But they want to document the work she's doing now. Study it. Learn from it. What Emma has this ability to connect with traumatized beings, it's extraordinary. And it could help a lot of people." "I don't know. That's a lot of pressure to put on a child." "It would be Emma's choice, always. But I think she has a gift, Sophia. and gifts like hers don't come along often. Sophia looked across the yard to where Emma sat with Titan, both of them watching the sunset, and she thought about all the ways trauma had tried to break her daughter and failed. Thought about how Emma had taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into the ability to heal. And she thought maybe Catherine was right. Maybe this was Emma's purpose. Maybe this was why she'd had to survive the car accident and the grief and the terrible silence that followed, so she could show others that survival was possible. "I'll talk to her," Sophia said finally, "but the decision has to be hers." That night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, Emma lay in her bed with Titan sprawled across the floor beside her. Sophia came in to say goodnight and found Emma still awake staring at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" Sophia asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About how Titan and I are the same. We both lost something. We both were really scared. But we both got better because someone didn't give up on us." "That's true. Mama, do you think there are other kids like me, kids who lost people and got too sad to talk?" Sophia's throat tightened. "Yes, baby. I think there are a lot of kids like that." "Do you think Titan could help them the way he helped me last night?" "I think he could, if you were with him, if you showed them how to connect with him the way you did." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to help kids who are sad and scared. And Titan can help me. We can help each other, help them." Sophia leaned down and kissed her daughter's forehead. "I think that sounds perfect, but you don't have to decide tonight. You're still just a kid yourself. You're allowed to just be 7 years old for a while." "I know, but it's nice to know what I want. It makes the sad feel like it was for something, you know. Like Daddy dying wasn't just bad. It was bad, but it also made me understand things I couldn't have understood otherwise. And now I can use that understanding to help people. So maybe the bad thing had a purpose after all." Sophia had to leave the room before Emma could see her crying. She stood in the hallway with her hand over her mouth, overwhelmed by her daughter's wisdom, by her resilience, by the beautiful, terrible way that trauma and healing were woven together into something that looked almost like grace. Mitchell found her there. "You okay?" "My daughter is 7 years old, and she understands life better than I do. Kids who've been through fire tend to see things more clearly than the rest of us. They don't have the luxury of pretending the world is safe." "Is that what happened to you, in the warehouse?" Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Yeah. I thought I knew what danger was. I'd been a cop for 15 years. But that night, when the building was coming down and I couldn't move and I knew I was going to die there, everything I thought I knew about myself got stripped away. And Titan pulled me out. But I left something behind in that fire. Some version of myself that believed I was invincible, that believed I could control things. What did you find on the other side?" "Nothing for a long time. Just emptiness and guilt and this feeling that I should have died instead of being saved. But lately," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "lately I'm starting to think that maybe I came through the fire so I could help Titan come through his. And maybe he came through his so he could help Emma come through hers. And maybe Emma came through hers so she can help other kids come through theirs. Maybe that's how healing works. It just keeps moving forward person to person until enough of us have been pulled out of our fires that the world gets a little bit brighter." Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, and saw someone she hadn't noticed before. Not just the police officer or the traumatized handler or the man offering them a place to stay, but someone who was fighting his way back to wholeness, the same way her daughter was, the same way Titan was. Another survivor. Another member of their strange, broken healing pack. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for letting us be here, for being part of this. Thank you for saving my partner, even if I couldn't." "Emma saved him." "No," Mitchell said. "Emma reached him, but you raised her. You kept her going after your husband died. You made sure she didn't break completely. Everything she was able to give Titan came from what you gave her first. So yeah, you saved him too. All of us saved all of us. That's how this works." They stood in the hallway together, listening to Emma's quiet breathing from her room, listening to Titan's soft snoring, listening to the sound of a house full of healing people, learning how to be whole again. And outside, the moon rose over the city, indifferent and eternal, watching over all the broken things, slowly mending themselves back together. 3 months passed in a rhythm that felt almost normal. Emma went to school. Sophia worked at the veterinary clinic. Mitchell returned to light duty at the department, doing administrative work. And Titan became the calm center around which their lives revolved. But normal was a fragile thing, and nobody in that house had forgotten how quickly everything could shatter. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Emma was at school. Catherine's voice was tight with something Sophia couldn't quite identify. Excitement, fear, both. "There's a situation," Catherine said without preamble. "A child welfare case. 8-year-old boy, severe trauma, nonverbal since witnessing his mother's death 6 months ago. Foster system can't place him because he's too volatile. Attacks other kids, destroys property, completely shut down. They're talking about institutional care." Sophia's stomach dropped. "Catherine, why are you telling me this?" "Because I told them about Emma and Titan, about what they did together, and they want to try something. They want to bring the boy to meet Titan, see if the same approach might work." "Absolutely not. Emma's 7 years old, she's not a therapist, and Titan is still." "Titan is stable. You know he is. He hasn't had an incident in 3 months. And Sophia, this little boy, his name is Marcus Jr. He's Officer Torres's nephew. Torres called me personally. He's desperate. They all are." The name hit Sophia like a physical blow. Torres, who'd brought his kids to the healing party. Torres, who'd watched Titan transform and wept with relief that the dangerous dog had found peace. Torres, whose family was now falling apart around a traumatized child nobody could reach. "I need to talk to Emma," Sophia said finally. "And Mitchell. This isn't my decision alone." "I understand, but Sophia, they're out of options. The state is giving them 1 more week before they move him to a facility. 1 week." That afternoon, when Emma came home from school with Titan waiting at the door like always, Sophia sat her daughter down at the kitchen table. Mitchell stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face unreadable. "There's a little boy who needs help," Sophia began carefully. "He's been through something really bad, and he stopped talking just like you did. The people who love him don't know how to reach him." Emma's eyes were steady. "And they think Titan can help. They think maybe you and Titan together might help, the way you helped each other. What happened to him?" Sophia exchanged a glance with Mitchell. "His mother died. He saw it happen, and now he's angry and scared, and he doesn't trust anyone." Emma was quiet for a long moment, her hand resting on Titan's head. Then she said, "When I stopped talking, I was angry too. I didn't want to be angry at Daddy for dying, so I was angry at everything else. At people who tried to help. At myself. At the whole world. I know, baby. If I say yes, what happens? Does he come here?" "He'd come to the center first, just to meet Titan, to see if there's a connection. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. Like how I was present for Titan. Exactly like that." Emma looked at Titan, and something passed between them that Sophia couldn't quite read. Then Emma nodded. "Okay, we'll try. But Titan has to want to. I won't make him do something that scares him." Mitchell finally spoke up. "Emma, you understand this boy might be dangerous. He's been violent with other kids. So was Titan, until someone showed him he didn't have to be. It's not the same thing. Yes, it is. Hurt people, but they can also heal people if someone gives them the chance." Mitchell looked at Sophia with an expression that said, "Your daughter is 7, going on 70. Sophia could only nod in agreement. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday morning at Riverside. Torres arrived early with his sister Maria and her son Marcus Jr. The boy was small for 8, with dark eyes that held nothing but emptiness and rage. He didn't speak, didn't make eye contact, just stood with his fists clenched and his body radiating a warning that everyone could feel. "Thank you for this," Maria whispered to Sophia, her eyes red from crying. "I don't know what else to do. The system wants to put him somewhere that—" Her voice broke. "Somewhere that will just make him worse." Emma approached slowly, Titan at her side. She stopped a few feet from Marcus Jr. and didn't say anything. Just stood there with the same calm presence she'd shown Titan that first day. Marcus Jr.'s eyes locked on Titan. Something flickered across his face. Fear recognition. He took a step back. "It's okay," Emma said quietly. "He looks scary, but he's not. He's just big. His name is Titan, and he used to be really angry too. But he's not anymore." Marcus Jr. didn't respond, but he didn't back away further either. "Do you want to see something cool?" Emma asked. "Titan can do a trick. Not a normal trick like sit or stay, a different kind." She sat down on the ground and pulled out her drawing pad. She began to draw, and Titan immediately lay down beside her watching. And slowly, carefully, Marcus Jr. took one step closer, then another. Catherine watched from her office window, Jake beside her. "She's doing it again," Jake murmured. "Making it look easy when we all know it's impossible." But then Marcus Jr. did something unexpected. He lunged forward and grabbed Emma's drawing pad, ripping it from her hands. Mitchell moved instantly, but Emma held up one hand. "It's okay," she said, even though Sophia could see her daughter's eyes were wide with shock. "It's okay. He can have it." Marcus Jr. stared at her, the drawing pad clutched to his chest, waiting for anger or punishment or rejection. "You want to draw?" Emma asked. "You can. I have more paper." She reached slowly into her backpack and pulled out another pad, a fresh one. She set it on the ground between them, along with her crayons. "I like to draw when I'm angry. It helps the angry come out without hurting anyone." Marcus Jr.'s grip on the stolen drawing pad loosened slightly. Titan, who'd been watching the entire exchange, stood up. Everyone tensed. But Titan simply walked over to Marcus Jr., gentle and slow, and pressed his nose into the boy's free hand. Marcus Jr. froze. Then his face crumpled and a sound emerged from him that nobody had heard in 6 months. A sob, raw and broken and full of every terrible thing he'd been holding inside. He dropped the drawing pad and collapsed onto Titan, wrapping his arms around the dog's neck and crying into his fur. And Titan, who'd been so broken himself, who'd been so lost in his own pain, stood perfectly still and let this small boy soak his shoulder with tears and snot and grief. Emma moved closer and sat down beside them. She didn't touch Marcus Jr., just sat there and said, "It's really hard, isn't it, losing someone? Being the one left behind. I know. I know exactly how hard it is." Maria was sobbing now, Torres holding her up. Sophia's hand was pressed against her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Mitchell's eyes were wet. They stayed like that for 20 minutes. Marcus Jr., crying, Titan standing strong, Emma sitting close. And when the tears finally slowed, Marcus Jr. pulled back and looked at Emma with eyes that were no longer empty, just tired and sad and achingly young. "My name is Emma," she said. "This is Titan. We both know what it's like to be really sad. If you want, we can be sad together. That makes it a little easier." Marcus Jr. stared at her. Then in a voice that was rusty from disuse, he whispered, "Marcus." Maria gasped. Torres's knees buckled and he sat down hard on the ground. Catherine's hand gripped Jake's arm so tight he'd have bruises later. "Hi, Marcus," Emma said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Do you want to draw with me?" Marcus nodded. They drew for an hour. Marcus's pictures were violent at first, all dark colors and angry slashes. But slowly, as Emma drew gentle things beside him and Titan dozed between them, Marcus's drawings began to change. Less violence, more sadness. And sadness, Sophia had learned, was the first step toward healing. When the session ended and Maria came to collect Marcus, he didn't want to leave Titan. He wrapped his arms around the dog again and said, "Can I come back?" "Yes," Emma said before any adult could answer. "Tomorrow if you want. Titan and I will be here. Every day. As many days as you need." Maria knelt beside her son, tears streaming down her face. "Baby, you talked. You talked." "The dog listened," Marcus said simply, and the girl understood. Torres pulled Sophia aside as everyone was leaving. "I don't know how to thank you. I don't know how to thank Emma. My sister was planning her son's funeral in her mind. She thought she'd lost him forever. Emma would say you don't need to thank her. She'd say we all just help each other. Your daughter is extraordinary. My daughter is 7 years old and I'm terrified of what we're asking her to do. Torres's face sobered. Then don't ask. Tell Catherine no. Protect your child. I want to, but Emma won't let me. She says this is what she's supposed to do. She's too young to know what she's supposed to do. Maybe. Or maybe she knows better than any of us. That night, Emma was quiet at dinner. She pushed her food around her plate and Titan sat beside her chair with his head in her lap, sensing her mood. You okay, sweetheart? Sophia asked. Marcus was so sad. Sadder than I ever was. Everyone's sadness is different. Yours wasn't less real just because his seemed bigger. But I got better. What if he doesn't get better? Mitchell set down his fork. Emma, you need to understand something. What you did today was incredible. But healing isn't something you can force on someone. You can offer it, but they have to choose to take it. If Marcus doesn't get better, that's not your fault. But I need to help him. He needs professional help. Therapists, doctors, people trained for this. You're a 7-year-old kid. You shouldn't be responsible for healing broken people. Emma's eyes flashed with something Sophia had rarely seen in her daughter. Anger. But I can help, I know I can. Why won't anyone let me? Because we love you, Sophia said quietly. And we don't want you carrying weight you shouldn't have to carry. Titan carries weight, you carry weight. Officer Mitchell carries weight. Why am I not allowed to? Because you're a child. So, being a child didn't stop the bad things from happening to me. Why should it stop me from helping with the bad things happening to other people? The question hung in the air, unanswerable and true. Sophia looked at Mitchell helplessly, and Mitchell looked back with the same confusion, the same fear, the same realization that they were standing at a crossroads and neither path felt safe. Marcus came back the next day, and the day after that. Each time he spoke a little more, cried a little less, drew pictures that looked less like nightmares and more like memories. Emma sat with him through all of it, and Titan provided the steady, quiet presence that both children seemed to need. But on the 4th day, something went wrong. Marcus drew a picture of his mother, a beautiful picture, careful and detailed in the way only a child who's trying desperately to remember every feature would draw. And when he finished it, when he sat back and looked at what he'd created, something broke in him. He screamed, a sound so full of rage and pain that Titan jumped to his feet and Emma scrambled backward. Marcus grabbed the picture and ripped it to shreds, then grabbed Emma's entire drawing pad and began destroying every page, ripping and tearing and sobbing. Marcus, stop! Maria rushed forward, but Marcus whirled on her with his fists raised. I hate you. I hate everyone. She's gone and you're all still here, and it's not fair. He ran toward the gate, but Jake was already there blocking it. Marcus crashed into Jake's legs and began hitting him, small fists pounding against Jake's knees while sobs tore from his throat. Titan moved before anyone could stop him. He stepped between Marcus and Jake, his body language completely non-aggressive but unmistakably protective. Not protecting Jake from Marcus, protecting Marcus from himself. Marcus collapsed against Titan, hitting the dog instead, and Titan just stood there and took it, absorbing the boy's rage the way a stone absorbs waves, steady and unmoving and safe. Emma approached slowly. Marcus, she said quietly. Marcus, look at me. But Marcus wouldn't look, just kept hitting Titan and crying. Marcus, I'm going to tell you something true. Something really, really true. Are you ready? Something in her voice made Marcus pause. His fists stilled against Titan's side. The unfair part never stops being unfair, Emma said, and her voice was older than 7, older than the years she'd lived. My daddy dying wasn't fair. Your mommy dying wasn't fair. And it will never be fair. Nobody can make it fair. But you know what? Being angry at people who are still here doesn't make the unfair thing any less unfair. It just makes you hurt more people. And then there's more hurt in the world, and your mommy still isn't back. So you have a choice. You can keep being angry at everyone. Or you can be sad with people who love you. Angry feels stronger, but sad heals better. Marcus stared at her, his small chest heaving. I don't want to be sad. Sad hurts too much. I know, but angry hurts everyone. Sad just hurts you. And when you're ready to stop hurting alone, people who love you can help carry it. But angry pushes them all away, and then you're all alone with something too big to carry by yourself. Marcus's face crumpled again. But this time, when he cried, he let Maria hold him. He let Torres put a hand on his back. He let Emma sit beside him and Titan lean against him. He let other people in to help carry what he couldn't carry alone. Catherine watched from her office with her phone in her hand, trembling. She'd been seconds away from calling emergency services, from shutting the whole thing down. And then Emma had said something that Catherine, with her doctorate and 20 years of experience, had never quite managed to articulate that clearly. That little girl, Jake said softly, is going to change a lot of lives, if it doesn't break her first. That's what I'm afraid of, Catherine admitted. She's so good at holding other people's pain. But who holds hers? The answer came 2 days later in a way nobody expected. Emma was at school when Sophia got a call from the principal. Emma had gotten into a fight. Emma, who'd never raised her voice at another student who was known for being gentle and kind, had shoved another girl so hard the girl had fallen and scraped her knee. Sophia arrived at the school to find Emma sitting in the principal's office, her face blank, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up when Sophia entered, and Sophia saw it immediately. Her daughter had finally hit her limit. What happened? Sophia asked after the principal explained the situation. Melissa said Marcus was crazy, Emma said in a monotone. She said her mom said they shouldn't let crazy kids in regular school. She said he should be locked up somewhere, so I pushed her. Emma, you can't. Why not? Emma's voice rose sharp and sudden. Why can't I? She was being mean about Marcus. She doesn't know what he's been through. She doesn't know anything. I understand that, but violence is never. Everyone keeps saying that. Everyone keeps saying violence isn't the answer, but Marcus was violent and everyone gave up on him. Titan was violent and they were going to kill him. Why do grown-ups get to give up on people? But I have to be nice to everyone, even when they're being terrible. The principal cleared her throat. Mrs. Rodriguez, perhaps we should discuss Emma's behavior at home. She seems to be under considerable stress. Of course she's under stress. Sophia snapped her own control, fraying. She's been helping traumatized children and dogs while trying to be a normal 7-year-old. She's carrying more emotional weight than most adults could handle. Then perhaps, the principal said carefully, she should stop. Perhaps she should just be a child. Emma stood up so fast her chair tipped over. I can't just stop. Marcus needs me. And there are going to be other kids after Marcus who need me too. I can't just pretend I don't know how to help them. Baby, maybe the principal is right. Maybe you need a break. I don't need a break. I need people to stop acting like helping people is something bad. I need people to stop treating Marcus like he's broken. I need... Her voice cracked. I need everyone to stop being so scared all the time. And then Emma did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She stopped talking. Just stopped mid-sentence, and her face went completely blank, and she sat back down and folded her hands and stared at nothing. Sophia's blood ran cold. Emma, baby, talk to me. Nothing. Emma's eyes were open but empty, and Sophia recognized this look, remembered this look from the months after her husband died, when Emma had retreated so far inside herself that Sophia didn't know if she'd ever find the way back. I need to take her home, Sophia said, her voice shaking. Right now. The principal nodded, suddenly understanding the severity of what she was witnessing. Of course. We'll discuss the consequences later. Just take care of her. Sophia got Emma into the car, and Emma moved like a doll, mechanical and disconnected. Sophia drove home with her heart in her throat, fighting the urge to pull over and shake her daughter back to consciousness. When they arrived, Mitchell's truck was in the driveway. He'd come home early from work. The door opened before Sophia could unlock it, and Mitchell took one look at Emma, and his face went white. What happened? She shut down, just like before. Mitchell, I don't know what to do, But Mitchell was already kneeling in front of Emma. Where's Titan? He asked Sophia. Inside in his crate, Mitchell stood and went inside. A moment later, he returned with Titan, who took one look at Emma and whined a high, distressed sound. He pushed past Mitchell and pressed his entire body against Emma's legs. And Emma, who hadn't responded to anything since the principal's office, slowly reached down and put her hand on Titan's head. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "I'm so tired of being the one who understands. I'm so tired of being the one who has to help. I just want to be 7. I just want to draw and play and not have to think about sad things all the time." Sophia collapsed beside her daughter, gathering her close. "Then that's what you'll do. No more Marcus. No more helping other kids. No more carrying weight you shouldn't have to carry. You're done, baby. You're done." "But Marcus has his family. Marcus has professionals. Marcus will be okay. But I need you to be okay more than I need you to help Marcus. Do you understand? I choose you. I will always choose you." Emma cried, then deep, gulping sobs that came from somewhere so deep, Sophia didn't know how her small daughter had been holding them. And Titan pressed closer, and Mitchell put his hand on Sophia's shoulder, and all 4 of them sat on the front porch, while Emma finally let herself break. Inside the house, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "How is she?" Sophia texted back with shaking hands. "She's 7 years old, and we've been asking her to heal the world. She's exactly how you'd expect." Catherine's response came immediately. "I'm coming over. Don't let her carry this alone." "That's the problem," Sophia texted back. "She's been carrying it alone this whole time. We just didn't want to see it." When Catherine arrived an hour later, she found Emma curled up on the couch with Titan, not talking, just breathing. Sophia sat on one side, Mitchell on the other, both of them keeping watch like sentries. "Can I talk to her?" Catherine asked quietly. Sophia shook her head. "She's done talking. She's done with all of it. Sophia, we need to address this. If Emma is having a trauma response, she's having a normal response to abnormal pressure. She's 7 years old and we've been treating her like some kind of miracle worker. When does she get to just be a kid? I know, you're right. I pushed too hard. I saw what she could do, and I didn't think about what it was costing her." "We all pushed too hard," Mitchell said quietly. "We all saw a solution to impossible problems, and we grabbed onto it without thinking about whether we should. That's on all of us." Emma's voice, small and tired, emerged from where she was curled against Titan. "I wanted to help. I needed to help. It made me feel like Daddy dying meant something." Sophia's heart broke all over again. Baby Daddy dying doesn't need to mean something. Sometimes bad things just happen and they're just bad. They don't have to teach us lessons or make us stronger or give us purpose. They can just be terrible things that we survive. That's enough. But if I don't help, then what's the point? What's the point of understanding all of this if I don't use it? "The point," Catherine said, gently kneeling in front of the couch, "is that you survived. That's the point. You survived your father's death, and you learned how to speak again, and you helped a traumatized dog remember how to trust. That's already more than most people accomplish in a lifetime. You don't owe the world anything more than that. But there are so many sad kids, so many scared animals. How can I just ignore them?" "You're not ignoring them. You're taking care of yourself so that someday when you're older and stronger and more equipped to handle it, you can help them. But right now you need to be 7. You need to color and play and watch cartoons and not think about trauma for a while. Can you do that?" Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded against Titan's side. "Can Marcus still come see Titan just to visit? Not for me to help just because they're friends now?" Catherine looked at Sophia, who nodded reluctantly. "Marcus can visit, but trained therapists will supervise, not you. You'll just be there as Titan's person, not as Marcus's healer. Can you accept that?" "I think so. And Emma, if it gets too hard, if you start feeling like you have to fix things, you tell us immediately. Deal." "Deal." They sat in silence for a while, the strange patchwork family that trauma had assembled. A widowed mother, a traumatized cop, a 7-year-old who understood pain too well, and a dog who'd learned that broken things could heal each other if they were patient enough. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that didn't care about human suffering or healing, just kept being beautiful because that's what sunsets did. And inside, 4 survivors sat together and breathed and existed and decided that for today, that was enough. The weeks that followed were quieter, but quiet didn't mean easy. Emma went back to being 7, or at least she tried. She colored and played with dolls and watched cartoons, but Sophia could see the effort it took, the way Emma's eyes would drift sometimes to places that weren't quite present to thoughts that were too heavy for childhood. Marcus still came twice a week, supervised by a child psychologist named Dr. Reeves, who specialized in trauma. Emma was allowed to be there, but only as another kid, not as a helper. The first visit after Emma's breakdown was tense. Marcus walked in holding his aunt's hand and saw Emma sitting with Titan. His face lit up with hope, then immediately dimmed when he saw Emma's expression. She smiled at him, but it was a careful smile, the kind you give someone when you're trying, but not quite succeeding. "Hi, Marcus," Emma said. "Hi." He hesitated. "Are you mad at me?" The question hit Emma visibly. She looked startled, then sad. "No. Why would I be mad at you? Because I made you tired. My aunt said you got tired from helping me, and that's why you can't help anymore." Emma's hands tightened in Titan's fur. Dr. Reeves started to intervene, but Sophia held up a hand, wanting to see how Emma would handle this herself. "I did get tired," Emma said slowly. "But not because of you, because of me. Because I thought I had to fix everything, and I can't. Nobody can fix everything. Sometimes you just have to sit with the broken parts until they start healing themselves. But you helped me. You and Titan helped me talk again." "We didn't help you talk. We just sat with you while you remembered how. There's a difference." Marcus thought about this for a long moment. Then he said something that made every adult in the room go still. "My mom used to say that before she died. She used to say she couldn't fix me, she could only love me while I figured things out myself." "She was right," Emma said. "That's all anyone can really do." Marcus crossed the space between them and sat down next to Emma, not touching, just close. Titan shifted to put his head in Marcus's lap, and Marcus's hand automatically went to the dog's ears, stroking gently. "Can we still be friends?" Marcus asked. "Even if you're not helping me anymore?" "We were always friends. The helping part was extra." Dr. Reeves caught Sophia's eye and nodded slightly, a gesture of approval. This was good. This was healthy. This was 2 traumatized children learning that connection didn't have to mean fixing. But 3 weeks into the new normal, something happened that changed everything again. Mitchell came home from work early, his face ashen. He walked straight past everyone into the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water with shaking hands, and sat down at the table without speaking. Sophia followed him. "Marcus, what's wrong?" "There was a fire at an apartment building downtown. Suspected arson. They called in K9 units from 3 counties. And he took a drink, the glass rattling against his teeth. I watched them work. Watched the dogs go in and come out and go in again. And all I could think was that Titan should be there. That was his job. That's what he was born to do. And I took him away from it." "You didn't take him away from anything. He couldn't do the work anymore. Because I failed him. Because I couldn't help him through his trauma. Mitchell, we've talked about this. You didn't fail anyone. Then why does it feel like I did?" His voice broke. "Why does it feel like I'm living in his house, eating his food, sleeping in a bed I don't deserve because I couldn't save my own partner?" From the doorway, Emma's small voice cut through the heavy air. "You are saving him, every single day. You just don't see it." Mitchell turned to look at her, this tiny girl who'd somehow become the emotional compass for all of them. "Emma, you should be in bed. I heard you come in. You sounded sad." She walked over and climbed into the chair beside him. "Titan doesn't want to be a police dog anymore. He told me." "Dogs can't tell you things, sweetheart." "Yes, they can. Just not with words. He's happy here. He likes having a house and a family and not having to be scared of fires and loud noises. He likes protecting me and Marcus. That's his job now. And he's really good at it. But he could be doing important work. Life-saving work. He is doing life-saving work. He saved Marcus from the sad. He saves me from nightmares. He saves you from feeling alone. Just because it's not the kind of saving that makes the news doesn't mean it's not important." Mitchell stared at Emma, and Sophia watched her daughter's words land like stones in still water, sending out ripples that reached places neither of them could see. "When did you get so wise?" Mitchell asked, his voice thick. "When I had to be. Same as you. Same as Titan. Same as everyone who survives bad things." Emma reached over and took Mitchell's hand. "It's okay to miss who he was, but you have to see who he is now. And who he is now is happy. So maybe you get to be happy too." That night, after Emma was in bed, Mitchell sat on the back porch with Titan at his feet. Sophia found them there an hour later, Mitchell's hand resting on Titan's head, both of them looking out at nothing. "She's right, you know," Sophia said, sitting down beside him. "About all of it." "I know. I wanted to give him back what the fire took, his purpose, his identity. I thought if I could just get him stable enough to return to duty, everything would be okay. But he doesn't want to return to duty. He wants this. He chose this. He chose Emma, and by extension, he chose all of us." Mitchell nodded slowly. "My therapist said something similar. Said I was trying to heal Titan so I wouldn't have to heal myself. Said I was using his recovery as a substitute for my own." "Are you healing, I mean?" "I don't know. Some days I think yes. Other days I wake up and I'm still in that warehouse burning." That's what Emma said too, about her nightmares. She said some mornings she wakes up and her dad is dying all over again. How does she handle it? She comes and finds Titan, or me, or you. She doesn't try to handle it alone anymore. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe healing isn't about not having the bad days. Maybe it's about having people to be with on those days. Mitchell looked at her, really looked at her, and Sophia felt something shift in the air between them, something that had been building for months, but neither of them had wanted to name. "Sophia, don't," she said quickly. "Not yet. I'm not ready for whatever you're about to say. I'm still married in my head, even though he's been gone for 2 years, even though I know he's never coming back. In my head, I'm still his wife." I wasn't going to say anything like that. I was just going to say thank you for letting me be part of this, for giving me something to hold on to when I didn't know how to hold on to myself. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You're welcome. And for the record, when I'm ready, if I'm ever ready." She couldn't finish the sentence, but Mitchell nodded like he understood anyway. The next morning brought news that shattered the fragile peace they'd built. Catherine called before sunrise, her voice urgent. "Turn on the news! Channel 7, now!" Sophia fumbled for the remote and the television flared to life, showing a press conference. The caption read, "Former police K9 becomes viral sensation." A reporter's voice narrated over footage that Sophia recognized with dawning horror. It was cell phone video from the healing party from that day months ago when Emma had sat with Titan and Marcus, when Torres's kids had played with the once dangerous dog, when everything had felt possible and safe. The video, the reporter said, posted anonymously yesterday, has already garnered over 15 million views. It shows a 7-year-old girl rehabilitating Titan, a police dog deemed too dangerous for service after a traumatic incident. Mental health professionals are calling it a breakthrough in trauma therapy. Child welfare advocates are calling it exploitation. And the police department is calling it a liability. The camera cut to a spokesperson from the department. "While we're pleased that the animal received help, we want to be clear that the methods shown in this video were not sanctioned or supervised by our department. The child's safety was potentially compromised, and we'll be investigating the circumstances that led to these interactions." Sophia's phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, emails from numbers she didn't recognize. Mitchell's phone was the same. Within minutes, the doorbell started ringing, and through the window, Sophia could see news vans pulling up to the curb. "Get Emma," Mitchell said, his cop instincts taking over. "Take her out the back. Go to Catherine's office. I'll handle this." But Emma was already awake, standing in the hallway in her pajamas, staring at the television. "Why are they talking about me?" "Someone posted a video, baby. It's gotten a lot of attention." "What kind of attention?" Before Sophia could answer, the doorbell rang again, followed by aggressive knocking. A reporter's voice shouted through the door. "Ms. Rodriguez, can you comment on accusations that you endangered your daughter for publicity?" Emma's face went pale. "Publicity? I didn't want publicity. I just wanted to help Titan." "I know, baby, I know. But sometimes when people see something they don't understand, they make it into something it's not." The knocking intensified. More voices joined the first, a cacophony of questions and demands and accusations bleeding through the walls of what had been their safe space. Titan started barking, a sound he hadn't made in months, his body tense and protective as he positioned himself between Emma and the door. "We need to leave," Mitchell said. "Now, before this gets worse." They packed quickly, throwing essentials into bags while the noise outside grew louder. Sophia called Catherine, who confirmed she'd clear out a space at the center where they could stay temporarily. They slipped out the back door and into Mitchell's truck, Titan in the back, with Emma, both of them pressed low to avoid being seen. As they pulled away, Sophia looked back at the house that had become their home, now surrounded by reporters and cameras and strangers who thought they knew their story. And she felt something in her chest crack open, something between rage and grief, and a desperate, aching protectiveness. "They're making her into a spectacle," Sophia said, her voice shaking. "They're taking something pure and beautiful and turning it into a circus." "We'll fix this," Mitchell said, his jaw tight. "I'll call the department, get a statement. They can't just throw around accusations without evidence." But Emma's quiet voice from the back seat stopped them both. "They're not wrong, though, are they?" Sophia twisted around. "What do you mean, baby?" "I was in danger. Every time I went into that enclosure with Titan, every time I sat with Marcus, I could have gotten hurt. You were all scared, I remember. So maybe they're right to be worried." "Emma, no. What you did was brave, not reckless. But how do other people know the difference? How do they know I wasn't just a little kid doing something stupid?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable, because Emma had put her finger on the exact fear that had haunted all of them from the beginning. The fear that they were letting a child do something dangerous and calling it healing because the outcome had been good. The fear that if something had gone wrong, they would have been responsible. They spent the day at Riverside fielding calls and declining interviews. Catherine hired a lawyer who specialized in media cases who advised them to say nothing until the furor died down. But the furor didn't die down. It grew. Social media lit up with opinions. Half the internet called Emma a hero, a miracle worker, a testament to the healing power of love and understanding. The other half called Sophia a negligent parent, Mitchell an irresponsible officer, and Catherine a reckless professional who'd endangered a child for publicity. By evening, the police department issued a formal statement saying they were investigating whether any laws had been broken. Child Protective Services called Sophia to schedule a home visit. The veterinary clinic where Sophia worked called to say she'd been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Sophia sat in Catherine's office with her head in her hands while Catherine and Mitchell tried to strategize. Emma was in another room with Titan drawing, removed from the chaos, but still at the center of it. "This is my fault," Catherine said for the 15th time. "I should never have suggested Emma work with Titan. I should have known this could blow up." "We all agreed to it," Mitchell said. "We all saw what was happening and allowed it to continue. If anyone's at fault, it's me. I'm the one with professional K9 experience. I should have shut it down." "Stop it," Sophia said, her voice hard. "Both of you. This isn't anyone's fault. Emma made a choice. We supported that choice. It worked. Everything that happened was good and real and helped people. Just because strangers with cameras and opinions don't understand, it doesn't make it wrong." "But the investigation," Catherine started. "Let them investigate. They'll find that my daughter was supervised by professionals, that safety protocols were followed, that Titan never once showed aggression toward her. They'll find that Marcus is talking again, that Titan is stable, that everyone involved is better off than they were before. What they won't find is negligence or exploitation or any of the other things they're accusing us of." "You sound certain." "I am certain. Because I know what we did here. I know what Emma did. And I know that the world needs more of it, not less, no matter how uncomfortable it makes people to see a child teaching adults how to heal. 3 weeks later, the investigation concluded. No laws had been broken. No child had been endangered beyond what the supervising professionals deemed acceptable risk. No exploitation had occurred. The case was closed. But the damage was done. Emma's face was known now, recognized in grocery stores and parks. People approached with opinions, with gratitude, with anger, with advice. Some wanted Emma to help their troubled children or animals. Others wanted to protect Emma from what they saw as adult manipulation. Nobody wanted to just let her be 7. Sophia homeschooled Emma for the rest of the year. They stopped going to Riverside except for private sessions. Mitchell took early retirement from the department, unable to handle the whispers and sideways looks from colleagues who thought he'd compromised the integrity of K-9 work by allowing Titan to become a pet. The house that had been surrounded by reporters stood empty. Nobody wanted to go back there, to the place where their privacy had been shattered. They found a smaller place on the edge of town, somewhere quiet, where nobody knew them. And slowly, carefully, they rebuilt something that looked like normal life. Emma turned 8. Then 9. Marcus stopped coming for sessions because his family moved to another state. But he wrote letters to Emma telling her about his new school and his new friends, and how he still thought about Titan sometimes when things got hard. Titan grew older, slower, grayer around the muzzle. He still stayed close to Emma, still woke her from nightmares, still provided the steady, unshakable presence he'd learned to give the day a small girl had knelt in front of him and shown him that being broken wasn't the same as being beyond saving. On Emma's 10th birthday, she made an announcement at dinner. "I want to become a real therapist," she said, "the kind with training and a license and everything. So when I help people, nobody can say I'm just a kid who got lucky. So I can actually know what I'm doing instead of just guessing." Sophia felt pride and sadness twist together in her chest. "That's a long road, baby. Years of school." "I know. But I don't want to be 10 and trying to heal people. I want to be 30 and actually qualified, so I can help for real, not just by accident." Mitchell raised his glass. To Emma, who figured out at 10 what most people never figure out at all, that wisdom isn't the same as knowledge, but sometimes you need both. They clinked glasses, even Emma with her milk, and Titan's tail thumped against the floor, and in that moment everything felt precarious and permanent at once. The way life feels when you've been broken and healed and learned that the two states aren't opposites, but parts of the same ongoing process. Years passed. Emma graduated high school, then college, then graduate school. She became Dr. Emma Rodriguez, specializing in trauma therapy for children. She never forgot where she'd learned her earliest lessons about pain and healing and the complicated space between them. Titan passed away when Emma was 23, old and loved, and so far removed from the violent, terrified dog he'd been that sometimes Emma had to look at old photos to remember that version of him had ever existed. She held him as he went, whispering the same words she'd said to him that first day. "You're safe now, I promise." Mitchell and Sophia had married by then, a quiet ceremony with just a few friends, Torres and his family among them. Marcus came a college student now studying social work, still carrying the lessons he'd learned from a 7-year-old and a traumatized dog. Emma opened her own practice, specializing in animal-assisted therapy for traumatized children. She worked with dogs like Titan dogs that other people had given up on, and she taught children who'd survived terrible things how to connect with animals who'd done the same. She never made it look easy. She never pretended it was simple. She just showed up and sat with the broken pieces and trusted that healing would happen at its own pace. On the wall of her office hung a drawing, faded and carefully preserved behind glass. It showed a dog and a girl sitting side by side, and above them, a sun with rays stretching across the page. Below it, a plaque read, "The first one, the one who taught me everything." When people asked Emma how she'd known what to do with Titan, how a 7-year-old had accomplished what professionals couldn't, she always gave the same answer. "I didn't know anything. I just recognized something in him that I'd lived through myself. And I sat with him in it until we both found our way out." That's all healing ever is. Recognizing yourself in someone else's pain and staying present while they remember they're not alone in it. And on the days when Emma's own trauma crept back up, when she woke from nightmares of car crashes and lost fathers and all the ways the world could break a person, she'd sit with those feelings the way she'd taught so many others to do. She'd let herself be sad or scared or angry, and she'd remember that being broken once didn't mean staying broken forever. Because a long time ago, a dog named Titan had taught her that the most dangerous thing in the world wasn't violence or anger or fear. It was believing you were beyond saving. And the most powerful thing was proving that belief wrong one day, one moment, one choice at a time. Emma had spent her life since that day teaching others what Titan had taught her, that nobody is ever too broken to heal, that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and that sometimes the smallest acts of understanding can save lives that everyone else has given up on. She'd learned it from a dog who'd lost himself in fire and found himself again in the patient presence of a child who'd been lost herself. And she'd spent every day since trying to pass that lesson forward, believing that if enough broken things learned to heal each other, eventually the world itself might become a gentler place. That was the hope anyway. And hope Emma had learned was the thing that survived even when everything else burned.